1260 KLYC, The Cruise, and live we are at the Senior Center here in McMinnville. We're going to be talking about senior citizens issues. We've had a chance to record an interview with John Bartholomew of the American Association of Retired Persons. And we'll be playing that interview here in just a moment. You can go online and see us. And we have a crowd of 3 people here tonight. And we just scared one of them out the door. But no, he came back. You can see all 4 of us here if you go online to KLYC Radio or KLYC.us on Facebook. Excuse me, you can go to KLYC Radio and KLYC Video and KLYC Radio on Facebook. And our main website is KLYC.us. Now that we're thoroughly confused, we're glad you're with us tonight. So who do we have here in our studio audience? What's your name?
Les Buchholz.
Les, thanks for being with us tonight. Your name?
And spouse, Judy Buchholz.
Les and Judy Buchholz. And you're from McMinnville? Yes. And what's your name, sir?
Ken Spandy.
Ken Spandy. I met Ken this afternoon here at the Senior Center, so I'm glad you braved the weather and you came out to join us.
For the weather, so can I get out with it. Yes, wonderful.
Okay. Hey, we've got another person. Come on over here. Who do we have here? John Francis. John, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good, thanks. My wife and I just got back from Kenya. We were 4 weeks over there, and we took some sewing machines over and helped some women start a business.
Well, we'll have to talk to you about that. Maybe we can talk to you tonight about it. Sure. Is your lovely wife here?
Yes, she's coming right now.
Okay. Well, we're live here on AM 1260 KLYC. And we're going to be talking about senior citizens issues. We're not set up tonight to take phone calls, but in the future we may. We also, if we do another issue, and we probably will, with seniors in the future, we want to have somebody here live with us tonight from the American Association of Retired Persons. John Bartholomew is not able to be with us tonight, but we did have a chance to talk to him by means of tape recording, and we will share that here in just a moment. But as we were looking at topics to do town halls on, now Town Hall is a program that KLYC is doing. We're going to talk about another issue that somebody brought up that's not senior related. What we want to do is get the radio station out in the community and talk about issues going on in the community. And an unrelated issue, note to the city councilors, we have a resident of McMinnville that's tired of all the zombie houses, as she calls them, houses that have been boarded up by the banks and people are living in, and she thinks that the city should do something about the zombie houses. Maybe we'll talk about that in a future program here on KLYC. But tonight's senior citizens issues. So as we talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hi, John.
John, what do you think are, if we had a list of top 3 issues, 1, 2, 3, affecting senior citizens, what would be on your list?
The first thing actually is the bus service in this town. Senior citizens are stuck out on the highway and they have to walk all the way across a large parking lot, let's say to get to Winco or Walmart. If they're going to come to the senior center, they get dropped off at McDonald's, for gosh sake, have to walk across the highway and all the way down to the senior center. Now, there is a contract coming up in a couple of months where the bus service is going to be rediscussed, or there's going to be a new contract. And the bus people, they want to just keep dropping people off on the highway. Senior citizens could use a decent bus service that drops them off at, close to the doors of Safeway or Winco or Walmart or Bi-Mart or Lowe's. And if enough people get involved, if enough seniors get involved on this, we can solve this problem. We can have a contract up that it allows the bus service to stop at these various places instead of dropping people off at the highway, so they have to walk through the rain and try to carry their groceries back up to the highway, etc.
How far do they have to walk?
Well, from Winco up to the highway, across the big parking lot. If you get dropped off at McDonald's to walk to the senior center, you've got 3 or 4 blocks to walk. Quite a few hundred yards to walk. If you're dropped off on the highway, you've got a long ways to walk to get down to Bi-Mart, or to Lowe's.
Especially on a day like today, that's something. We'll make a note here. In fact, we're going to come over here and make a few notes here on the computer. And so we make sure that we got a record of all of this. So stand by here just a second. There we go. So bus service, that would be your number one on your list.
That's right. With handicapped people are really, this is important for them as well.
You're talking about the YCAT, the Yamhill County Area Transit?
Well, no, I'm just, I guess that's what it is. Yeah, the bus service here, right.
Here in McMinnville.
Yeah, the two routes in McMinnville.
Okay.
It's also a problem in Newburgh.
Okay. What's number two on your list? We did bus service. Now, if you had a number two, what would that be? Areas of concern for senior citizens. You're looking to your wife. I think she's left you.
I see. No, that's the one I've been thinking of at the moment. So why don't you ask somebody else what their opinions might be of other ones?
Okay, that's very good. And what we'll do is tomorrow we'll call up YCAT and talk to them about your concerns and see what, and we'll give their answer on the radio. So, do we want to talk to your lovely wife here? What is your number one concern for seniors? Come on over here to the microphone. What's your name, first of all?
My name is Kay, and we just started a new program through your community mediators about a mediation program, listening program. And if elders, if they have an issue or they want to talk to somebody about something that's bothering them, all they have to do is make an appointment at the front desk, and we have somebody from your community mediators that will sit and listen to them for up to an hour.
Okay, we won't charge you for that commercial. So, number one concern for senior citizens, what would it be?
People not listening to them.
Oh, okay. In the
I'm a senior citizen. I don't think I get listened to. Huh, John?
so people just ignore you and think that because you're a senior citizen, your input doesn't matter.
Yeah, there you go. Sometimes that happens, yeah.
Okay, folks, so listen up. Senior citizens, and one of the cool things about senior citizens is they have a lot of life experience. They've been to the rodeo a couple times, and they have some experience that we can draw from. Yeah. Sir, could we have your name again so people know who we're talking to?
Well, I don't really have anything to add right now.
Number one concern for seniors? Did you just come to
Coverage, I think.
medical coverage as far as cost?
Well, just to ensure that it's available. I think we have very good medical coverage in this area, but if changes occur in Medicare or Medicaid for a lot of people.
Now, there's a lot of news right now about the Trump administration trying to repeal Obamacare. There's a lot of concern. Are all of you here concerned about what's happening with Medicare and health insurance and rates and so on and so forth? So you've been watching that. What's your thoughts as you're hearing the national rhetoric?
Not to get upset. I think that's why we have three branches of government, and one will cover for the other. I won't go into whether I'm for or against the current president. But I think the homeless issue is really a major issue here. Well, I think in all of the cities the homeless is, and I don't have an answer as to how to solve that.
Let me ask you this question about health care. Would you be willing to pay more to have the current level of health care or actually a little bit better? Would you pay more money?
Actually, the amount of coverage I have is quite good, but I have supplemental insurance also, so we're covered that way.
Is that a private contract?
Yes, yeah, United Health.
Okay, and we won't charge them for that commercial either. What was your name, and what would be your first concern for seniors?
Well, my name is Judy Buchholz, and I think my main concern is with this Trump administration that I don't want to see our Medicare benefits cut. I think they're very important to the senior citizens, and we have earned them, and I don't want to see any of our medical cut. I think they're very important to us because we're not earning a whole vast amount of money like our friends and our people in the United States who are on the marketplace. That would probably be my main concern. And the other is Social Security. There's no reason to cut that. It hasn't been cut in a few years, so I see no reason to cut it any further. And the other concern I have for our community is our homeless problem that has been worked on and worked on and worked on. And I don't think we're going to receive any federal funds for that. State funds are kind of minimal, and it's really kind of gotten to be quite a problem here in McMinnville. So we need to kind of work on some kind of housing for them. And I know it's being worked on at the city council, and I praise the city council for all that is being done for them. So that is kind of a continuing issue and a main concern for citizens as well as senior citizens too.
A citizen survey that was done on behalf of the city of McMinnville that was done professionally, that was one of the areas of concern, the homeless situation and affordable housing. So there's a lot of people in McMinnville that share your viewpoint on that. Sir, if people forgot who you are, could I get your name while I trip over my mic cord here?
You even forgot my name already?
No, but the people on the radio can't see you, and I forgot your name.
Aren't they lucky? My name is Ken Spandy. Okay, I don't really have any big concerns. I am very fortunate. I'm able to take care of myself. I have a wonderful family that looks after me, and I'm just happy to be alive.
Well, thank you.
I don't have any great big concerns. I just wanted to come here and listen to see what I'm supposed to be worried about. And that don't make any sense.
You get A's for honesty.
Yes, you bet.
Here in just a minute, we are going to hear from John Bartholomew of the American Association of Retired Persons. He spends a lot of time in Salem talking to the legislature about concerns of seniors. And he says that health concerns, health availability, and the cost of health coverage and health care are of big concern to seniors. But a huge concern of seniors is being able to pay their bills month to month, their rent, fuel, heating costs, because one of the things that's happening is as businesses are trying to cut costs, it's hard for retired individuals to find work, and they tend to hire the younger worker instead of the older worker. And it's one of the concerns that John had that says the seniors are concerned about just being able to pay their bills. And so we'll hear from him in just a minute. So, okay, you have another concern back here.
Yes, I really did, and that is cutting services for Meals on Wheels. I just think that's wrong. Many people, that's the only contact they have all day.
You're talking about the budget cuts that are happening on the federal level that will probably filter all the way down to the state and local level?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. Would you be willing to pay more as a taxpayer to pay for those services like Meals on Wheels?
Yes, but I don't think it's necessary.
State Representative Ron Noble, who was recently elected here from the McMinnville area, former police chief, one of the things that he said is we don't have a budget problem, we have a spending problem. In other words, we need to reprioritize where we're spending our money. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely. And I know Mr. Noble, and I agree with him.
All righty. Any other comments here about issues affecting seniors? Okay.
It's interesting. There are 35, so I've heard, 35 advanced or first world countries in the world right now. 34 of them have universal health coverage, and the U.S. is the only one that doesn't, and it has by far the highest price, and that's because of all of the administrative and profit costs that go into it.
What about, there has been discussion on many levels about tort reform. In other words, putting a lid on the amount of damages that can be awarded in lawsuits because of medical malpractice as one of the reasons that healthcare costs are high. Do you agree with that? Do you think we should put some kind of limit on the amount of damages that can be sought in a medical malpractice suit?
They've tried that, and it turned out that some people who were badly crippled early in life because they didn't have a job at the time, were limited to quite a fairly low sum, considering it was their whole lifetime. So I don't agree with that, except when it's something outrageous. There's no reason why a limitless fund should be given to someone. But that's a tiny cost. That's a tiny part of medical costs today. The primary medical costs today are the insurance companies and the administrative. I mean, you're paying several $100s a pill for something that you can get in Canada for $1. The outrageous profits that are taken by the insurance companies, et cetera, are the major cause.
There's a lot of people that are getting their prescription drugs in the mail because they can get them from overseas. Obviously, the quality control, and hopefully they're getting the right medication. But that's one of the reasons they're doing it, is because they can get them cheaper, and hopefully they're getting the right medication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, if one wants to talk about reforming the medical system, you could have a discussion all night on that. But there's no question that everybody gets good medical care in Northern Europe, et cetera, and at half the price or less of what we pay.
All righty. How would you fix the system?
Well, I think the most important thing would be to get elected. And, and especially, to be elected as a one-term dictator, and I'd take care of it.
Okay. So you wouldn't have to worry about running for re-election.
Yeah.
So you've heard us talking about a number of different things: tort reform, medical prescription costs. Do you have anything you want to add to the conversation?
No.
No. Okay. Ma'am, how about you?
I was just trying to think about a universal system. I think that's what we need. A system where everybody's covered. From day one, babies on up, everybody's covered. It is true that other countries have better health care than we do. I know we get so riled up when people say, like me, say this: better health care in other countries. There's lower mortality rate on children, and then we start saying, well, because it's a mixed, diversified people. But it is true, and I think we have to really look at the problems with our health care. Everybody needs it, not just the very rich or just the chosen few, and it's going to get worse as we start changing the health care. And I think we should not really just have health care for the very rich or the medium income, but for everyone. And I think that really seriously should be looked at. And it's not going to be looked at with this administration.
I lived for a period of time in New Zealand, and this is kind of a controversial thing I'm about to say. And the Obama administration, with Obamacare, you had to have some kind of health insurance or you had to pay a penalty. I'm going to use one example. When I lived in New Zealand, when you paid for your car registration, and you could pay, one of the interesting things about New Zealand, when you registered your car, you could register it for a day or all year. And of course, if you were driving it when it was registered, you would get a ticket. But part of the registration cost of your car registration was into a fund that would pay for health coverage of everybody on the road in New Zealand. So if you got into an accident in New Zealand, you were covered because this universal care fund was funded by car registrations. And so if you were driving in a car and you got in an accident, you were covered, which was kind of nice for somebody from overseas because then you were covered. What do you think about that idea?
Well, I'm trying to think about it. I'm just, I don't know. It sounds like a good idea.
But there are some people in the United States that say, I want the freedom to choose whether or not to have health insurance. Now, I'm not saying to do that or not. I'm just saying that's one option. And as I was driving my car in New Zealand, and especially on, there's a very mountainous road called the Kopahikawai that was very, very windy. And you didn't want to get an accident up there because they didn't have air life and things like that in that part of New Zealand. so you really didn't want to get in an accident. However, if you did and survived and got to a hospital, your care was covered. So that's one thing that.
Well, the situation
Yeah.
with that is the people who don't want insurance, I think, are very, very selfish because they're not thinking of the community. You know, this person may not ever get ill. They may not ever need a hospital, but their chances are they will. This person is like driving a motorcycle without a helmet. You know, you can drive a motorcycle and never have a problem, but when the problem develops, you are going to need the best people in the world to be caring for you. And if you don't have insurance, you're still going to need the best people in the world to take care of you. But who is going to pay for it? The community is still going to pay for it because although you don't have insurance, it is other people's insurance that is going to pay for it. It's going to be the taxes on other people. And that is, I think, extremely selfish. So I did agree with Obama. I thought everybody should have insurance. And if you didn't have insurance, you paid a penalty. So I did agree with that part of it.
Okay, let's take a survey on that question about forcing people to have some kind of coverage or they pay a penalty. Sir, do you think we should do that? Yes or no?
I would say yes, but I think if you don't have insurance, don't you just go to the emergency room?
Yeah, but somebody at the end of the day has to pay for it. There you go. That's a good question. Somebody has to pay for it.
I don't have a good answer.
Okay, but you would think so. You agree with the Obamacare philosophy of everybody needs to help pay the piper so that everybody can have some kind of coverage, and it's not being forced upon a certain few people to pay all the cost.
I think that's right. If a person deliberately opts out and has a problem, then I guess they have to go into bankruptcy to pay it.
I guess so. So, what do you think?
Everybody pays for fire coverage, right? We all pay for the fire department. We all pay for the police department. We should all pay for the medical department.
So, you do not disagree, or in fact, you think the Obamacare philosophy of you have to have insurance or you pay a penalty is a good idea?
No, I think it's a simplistic idea. It's halfway decent. Everybody should be paying for full coverage for everyone, just like you pay for fire department coverage or police coverage.
Okay, maybe like my New Zealand auto insurance, auto healthcare automatic thing. Do you think that was a good idea? Yeah.
Well, no, because, I mean, what do you do when you're not in the car? You know, I mean, you get appendicitis or something, so you're not covered. It's got nothing to do with a car accident. I think there should just be universal coverage, period. And you can go to different countries and see how they do it. Taiwan did this. They decided they were going to have a first-rate health insurance. They went around to England, France, Germany, etc., and they found out the best and the worst things about each of those systems, and then they devised a system that used the best of each. And that's what we should do.
Okay, universal health care. So we have one vote for universal health care. So, John, we're going to put you on the hot spot here. Requiring or demanding people have some kind of coverage or pay a penalty. Yes or no?
Everybody needs coverage.
Right.
Okay. But what we're doing now is we're looking at a blanket that is going to cover everybody. And that doesn't necessarily meet the situation for every situation. Sometimes it's an individual that has his own priorities in shape. But when we're being forced to have a blanket over us, it's going to cost everybody. Okay, so I don't have a solution for that. But I just think that everybody ought to have their own individual interpretation of what coverage that they should have or what they want.
Should it be a law that you have to have insurance or pay a penalty?
That's what I'm saying. That, see, it covers everything. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but somebody is going to interpret it different. And that's going to end up being a problem.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your comments. Let's go back here to Kay. Kay, how you doing?
Okay.
So back to the question, we're taking a survey. Should you be required to have some kind of health insurance or pay a penalty?
Well, I just think everybody should have universal health care. We've been to a lot of countries, and universal health care just makes sense. And because you pay $500 and I pay $100, I don't think that's right.
Okay, regards to a comment that I made just a moment ago, as far as senior citizens very concerned about not being able to pay their bills. Any ideas about how to help seniors that really want to work that can't find a job? Should we, and we're just kind of throw it out here for comments, should we require businesses to hire a certain number of people over 60 years of age? Should we, I guess that's what Social Security is for, is to help make sure that people in our older years didn't have to worry about it, and they could have some kind of life, quality life in their older years. Anybody want to take that one? What do you think? I don't. Okay, go over here to John.
What did you call me?
Ken, sorry. Ken.
You got me mixed up with John.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. No, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Ken.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
I was as we're talking about issues regards to seniors. One of the concerns of seniors, and we'll hear that in a minute with John Bartholomew of AARP. A lot of seniors are concerned about how they're going to pay rent, the power bill, the heating bill, so on and so forth. What can we do to help seniors that really want to pay their bills that may be still able to work? Should we possibly require businesses to hire a small percentage of their workforce that are senior citizens, or is there some other ideas that we might come up with?
Doesn't that turn out to be, are they qualified? A qualification for that particular job? Can they do it? Yes. Hire a senior. If he's qualified, he's probably got more experience than a lot of the younger ones. And in that case, yeah, I think they should hire him.
But then you get into that quota system of then they have to hire a certain number of seniors, and what if they're not qualified? Then that's a problem.
Now we're going back into the semantics again of everything is got to be run by somebody, and and you're not taking the individual cases anymore. Okay, so you got that blanket coverage that you're trying to have one blanket take care of all the situations. You can't.
Okay. So, folks, if you're an employer and there's a qualified senior citizen, please consider hiring them, I guess is what our message is. Any other comments about prescription costs, medical care, coverage, Obamacare? I guess some people are calling it Trump care. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in Washington, D.C., because the push to repeal Obamacare and replace it with something has run into a bit of a stone wall. And it's going to be interesting to see if they can negotiate something and just what comes out the other end. I don't think anybody knows really what's going to happen yet. I'll just throw it out there. Any comments, parting comments from our audience? Yeah.
Your idea about forcing people or requiring people to hire seniors. We have a pretty good example here with the military where, people can join up and, work on parade grounds, etc. If the government started a small program where they hired seniors and had somebody to assign them out. For instance, some seniors might be assigned to help mentor kids who are having problems in school. Other seniors might be, out trying to solve particular problems for businesses or something. But I think being able to use different seniors for the public good would be an excellent way of helping people pay for their bills. And I don't think requiring businesses to hire a senior, et cetera, would be a good idea. You could offer an incentive to do so, but it wouldn't be good to require it because there'd be a lot of resistance and antagonism to some sort of thing like that.
Okay, I appreciate your comments, and I'm not proposing that we do. I'm just throwing some ideas up there to see what we think about them. Let's ask another question. Yamhill County, specifically McMinnville, is it a good place to live as a senior citizen?
I certainly have no complaints about it. I think it's an excellent place for a senior citizen.
But we just need to work on the bus service and taking the seniors to the door.
Absolutely, yeah. The bus service could use some improvement. And again, the homeless problem. This is not unique to McMinnville. It's something that the U.S. has to worry about.
Okay, Kay?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of housing. We just don't have enough ability to allow people to remain in their homes when they want to stay there. Instead, we want to put them into a larger home and give them a little room and warehouse them. And I don't think that's the best answer.
Have you heard about the tiny houses? Yeah. Do you think that's a good idea for
Whatever, yeah, I can. Yeah.
granny home or the tiny house?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on the individual.
Now, one thing that the city is starting to look at, the planning department and the city is actually looking at using tiny houses to help get some of the homeless off the street and into some kind of shelter.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we want to do in our talking program here is let people come in and tell us what they really would like or need, and maybe we can help them. Maybe there's some direction we can put them in, and so that they don't have to just suffer mentally.
Okay, well, thank you for all you do. John, tiny houses, what do you think?
Oh, I think they're probably a good idea. From what I can gather, they're not that cheap. But you could certainly increase your density with it. But I think the use of homes possibly bought and subdivided to house people is a good idea. The major thing, I think, is to be able to get people off the streets, and whether you use tiny houses or subdividing larger houses or, supplementing rents, I think probably supporting rents is a good way of doing it too.
One of the things that has also been considered by the city of McMinnville and others is tiny homes, but more apartments, more denser housing units. In other words, more apartment units and so on and so forth. There are some municipalities that don't like that kind of housing infill. In order to somewhat address the issue of affordable housing and make sure there's at least a roof over more people, what do you think about that denser housing units, more of that in McMinnville and other cities?
Oh, I think that's again and again in different places where it's been tried. It's been very successful. I know Portland is doing it right now. You should be able to have like a granny apartment in your backyard, that kind of thing. And I think that's an excellent idea. Eliminating zoning problems where it has to be a single-family house, for instance, and more apartment buildings and public housing.
Another thing that they're, there you go. The city is also looking possibly at the tiny houses and the system development charges, which are quite expensive when you're building a home. One of the things that the city is going to be looking at is SDC charges on these auxiliary housing units or tiny homes. Sir, tiny homes, more apartment complexes in McMinnville, would you be okay with those if we got more people into affordable housing?
That really is a difficult question. I just think of if you start having large apartments or buildings with a lot of apartments in it, and most of the people don't have any financial resources, that just sort of bring all the negatives together.
So it can create kind of an inner city kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't know that that's a good idea. And the smaller homes, I think maybe people would look at that as a temporary thing, and that would be good. It still doesn't solve a lot of issues. I mean, people that are living there have some problems, and they need to address those problems.
Okay. Ma'am, what about you? Tiny homes, more apartment complexes?
Well, they're trying out the tiny houses in Portland for women. And, you'd like to think of homelessness as a temporary situation, although much of it is not. It's a permanent situation for many of the folks because they have mental health problems and they're really not going to get off the streets. So a lot of them really need to be in group homes. So apartments, but they need to have some kind of a mentor there or somebody to kind of guide people who are in some of these apartments. But they also started this apartments for veterans in Portland, and veterans who were on the street and now in apartments have just a better look on life. They interviewed one of the veterans, and he now is like even has a shaver, and he's able to have a bed and his own bathroom. He says, "I'm going out to look for a job." So these type of things really give the people a better self-image and a better outlook on life. So even small apartments would be good for some of these people. But I think you have to do some interviews of people going into these places and find out who they are and what they want to do before you go ahead and just say, "Well, everybody here, come on, we're just going to load you up into these houses."
Now, when you were saying that, I did an interview in Bend, Oregon, and there was a nice young man sitting on a street corner with a sign saying, donations. He was panhandling, and he was very well dressed, and so I wanted to stop. But he let me interview him, which was kind of surprising, but I'm glad he did. And I asked him a couple questions. And he had worked in the housing industry, in the construction industry. And in the Bend, Oregon area at that time, there was a downturn, and they were having trouble finding work. And so he was out with the sign begging on the street. And at that time, there was a kind of a building boom in, I believe, it's the Dakotas, North and South Dakotas. The oil shale industry was really booming before it was stopped. And there was a lot of construction jobs there. So my question to him was, why don't you move to North Dakota, where there's a lot of or Texas, where there's a lot of construction jobs, instead of staying here and begging on the streets in Bend, Oregon? His answer to me was, I like it here, and I'll stand here on the street corner and beg because I like living in Bend. And my response to him was, what about not getting a job? Shouldn't you move to another part of the country to find work, to put food on the table and a roof over your head? And his answer was, no, I like it here. I'll just stand on the street corner and beg. What would your response be to him?
I would just kind of look at him in disbelief. I would just say, while talking to you, you sound like a very intelligent person who's out of a job and looking for a job. Well, this place might be a good place for you. Then get up and go look for a job here. I think I would kind of lose my compassion for him right there.
Yeah, I didn't give him any money. So what would you say to this young man who said, well, I like living here, I like the snow, I like whatever, so I'll just sit here and beg for money?
It's your choice, but don't count on me to give you any money.
Okay. So Ken,
It's his choice. It's his choice to do. He wants to stay here. That's fine. He's not hurting anybody except himself. And if that's the way he wants to live, so be it.
would you give him any money?
No.
Okay.
You know why?
Why?
Because he'll probably light up a cigarette, and that would really tick me off.
He was very well dressed, and that's why I wanted to stop and talk to him, because I wanted to hear his story. Everybody's got a story,
You started out talking about what do you like about Yamhill
Sure, go ahead.
or McMinnville, all right? And one thing that I like is the Senior Citizens Center. They have helped me out tremendous. Since my wife died, I have been coming over here. I have met so many different friends, and the people here have helped me tremendously. And I just wanted to say that.
They've been very nice to work with. We've worked with them ever since we've been in town, about 4 years with the radio station. Aaron does some senior center announcements every week, and they're just very, very nice. And they've done a number of promotions with us. They're great people.
Yes, they are. And I just wanted to emphasize that. Right.
Well, thank you. Tiny houses apartment complex.
I don't have any comment on tiny houses because I don't live in an apartment. Fortunately, I have my own home outside the city limits. And so I just don't have any desire to live in a small place or anything like that. And if the time ever came, I don't know what I'd do. I think I'd move in with my son or my daughter or something before I'd go to living into a small community like that.
Should we have more apartment complexes in McMinnville?
I don't know. I haven't got the foggiest idea. I can't answer that.
And one of the concerns about doing that from some people, and we've even mentioned it here tonight, is that you get a large, dense population of people that might have issues, and that can tend to cause crime and so on and so forth. And I use the term inner city, and that's what some people would describe it. But it's a cost-effective way to put more people in homes. And one of the things that in fact, talking about land use planning, one of the things that the city of Bend was fighting several years ago was LCDC was forcing them to have denser infill, which means have more apartment units and more homes where you can have multiple occupants in the same structure. It's called denser homes, apartment complexes, so on and so forth. And the city of Bend was fighting that because the local people wanted, they wanted some space to park their toys, and they felt like that the feeling in their community was better. That was the kind of quality of life they wanted. They wanted to have a larger unit for homes, and they were fighting that with LCDC. I just throw that out there as an aside. Comment?
Yeah. What do they do in New York? In Chicago? That's their life, is living in apartments. Okay?
I'm not a big apartment liver. I kind of like the Northwest lifestyle. What do you think? I'm rambling here.
I'm trying to think because I love to visit these cities, but after a couple of days, I'm thinking, there's just so much pavement. There's no greenery in the cities like McMinnville. We've been retired here since '05, and we came here from Spokane. And we just love living in a smaller town. We absolutely love McMinnville. We like that small town. We love 3rd Street, and we actually love everything about it. The one thing we don't like is we live 2 miles out of town. We wanted something right in town, but we couldn't find it. So when we were talking about bus service, we sure would like something to come out on Baker Creek that would kind of be nice, that we could eventually use. Now we can drive, but in order for us to stay in our own home and independent, we would like to have that service eventually.
So bus service on Baker Creek. How far out? How many miles out? Would you like to 2 miles out? Okay, so Baker, Whitecat, if you're listening, taking notes, they like to have bus service 2 miles out on Baker Creek Road. We've talked about a lot of things tonight. Is there any issues that we haven't talked about in regards to senior issues? Homelessness, affordable housing has come up. You like McMinnville, the quality of life, the green spaces. The Northwest is a beautiful place to live, and we all love it.
I'd like
Sure.
to say that supplemental housing.
Hang on to that for just a second.
Supplemental housing. Supplemental housing works well to help people live into different apartments, etc. And I agree. Nobody wants great big apartments with a lot of poor people in them. Most of the apartments around here, and I think the apartments that you could have in the future would, be 6 apartments or 4 apartments, just small. And you might only have supplemental support for 2 of the apartments out of the 4, so you can keep things spread around. Nobody wants to form a ghetto or some huge project or something like in Chicago or New York. Not at all. You can have supplemental housing, small housing, a real mixture. And as far as homeless people or people who are poor are concerned, they can be spread out throughout the community. There's no reason to bunch them together.
I'm going to change subjects on here a little bit. You heard me tell the story about the young man in Bend, Oregon, who was in the sign, well-dressed, construction industry. I can't find a job here, but I'm not going to move because I like it here, so I'm just going to sit on the street corner and beg. what would you, and that actually was an interview I did myself. So that is a real story. What would you tell that young man?
I tell them to go out and get a job, and I'm sure this idea of you're going to sit here on the streets and beg is probably wrong. There are a lot of jobs around if you go looking for them. Maybe he's fussy or something, but you're going to if you're going to get to South Dakota, it's going to take you a couple of $100s to get there. Then you're going to have to pay 2 months for a rental ahead of time. So how are you going to do that? You know, you're much better. I mean, what are you going to do if they want $600 a month for an apartment and you got to pay up 2 months ahead of time? If the guy's got no money, moving across the country is no answer to poverty.
Yeah, I understand that. But his comment of, I just don't want to leave because I like it here and I'm willing to beg to stay here.
Well, I'm willing to beg to stay here, that rubs me the wrong way. And I think that if people didn't give him some money and he got a little hungry, he'd all of a sudden find himself a job. If you go around the streets here, you'll see signs everywhere. They're looking for people. He just doesn't have a job that he wants, that's all.
Well, speaking of employment, and I'll just throw this out there, as I've talked to, do you have a comment? Oh, employment. One of the things that, as I'm talking to employers looking for workers, they're looking for people that will show up. Showing up is part of the battle. And I've talked to a number of employers and there are a number of help wanted signs hiring around McMinnville specifically. And they're looking for people that will work, well, number one, that will show up consistently and will work. And it was amazing to me how often that kept being mentioned to me as a problem. People are not showing up.
Well, that goes right into undocumented workers. And we have our illegal immigrants. And we have such a huge wine industry here. And so now everybody has to be so careful because the illegal immigrants are our best workers, because the wine industry and the grape industry need those immigrants in order to pick all the grapes, and of course it goes just on and on. So now that the threat of being deported is there, the farmers and the wine people, they all have to be very, very careful. So meanwhile, we have all these signs in town saying we need help, we need help. Well, where are the people who can go get these jobs, which is definitely not for a skilled person? If you go to McDonald's, you learn how to fry hamburgers. But there are a lot of people who just say, I don't think I want that job. Well, you're not working, you need a job, go apply for that job. It's like that guy who sat in the corner. Well, I'd rather be here and sit here and beg than go any other place. Well, it's the same thing. The homeless person would rather sit there because I don't really think I want to go get that job, or I just don't want to go get that job.
One of the things that happened in Oregon that I'm kind of disappointed is the kids working in the strawberry field. Now, maybe there were some abuses of that, but I think when I was a young kid, I bucked a lot of hay. You sweat, you worked hard, you made money, and I thought it taught kids a good work ethic. And I think making kids work in the strawberry field, obviously taking care of the abuses when they happen, but I think kids these days need an opportunity to learn a good work ethic. What do you think?
Yes, definitely.
Ask Kale about that. Okay, we're going to come back here and ask Kay about that. Kay, what do you think about that?
I think you're right. I pick strawberries, I pick beans, I pick filberts, hazelnuts. You okay? Yeah, I did all those crops. I went through the year and I babysat. If I didn't, I wouldn't have school clothes. I mean, seriously, my parents never bought any of my school clothes that I can ever remember.
You bought your own.
I bought my own. Everything. Yep, totally.
Your parents didn't buy you $60 video games.
She did not. I don't even think they spent $60 on me my whole life.
Okay, that's kind of an editorial comment for me. Yeah. What do you think?
Oh, no, I agree. That's fine. There should be no problem with kids working out in the field. When I said go talk to Kay, she was out there from the age of 6. doing picking vegetables, etc. And as long as there's no abuse going on and it's in the summertime or whatever, I see nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I think we should put the kids to work, but that's just my opinion. Teach them how to work. Any other comments? You would agree?
For myself, I was thinking, well, I cut lawns, I babysat, I found any kind of job available. I went in, and we didn't have any money, so I went out in the onion fields and did onions. And I think the kids nowadays need to do more jobs just to get that work ethic. And
Oh, I totally agree. No comment? Okay. Ken, no comment. Okay. So I think we've covered a lot of issues here. Closing thoughts? Anybody have any comments that they want to give with us before we go to our interview with John Bartholomew?
I think we should listen to our seniors.
Listen to our seniors.
To people.
Okay, number one, we came away with bus service. Don't make the seniors walk long distances. Baker Creek Road, you like to have bus service 2 miles down Baker Creek Road.
We do have dial-a-ride.
We do have dial-a-ride.
But that's 24 hours notice, and if you want to all of a sudden go to the senior center for lunch that day, you can't.
Okay. And we've had accolades to, speaking of the senior center, what a beautiful facility here, and really, really nice people. The commendations to the folks at the senior center. Well, folks, thank you very much for coming and being part of the conversation. We've talked about a lot of issues. We put you on the spot on some of the things. And I just really appreciate you coming and talking on the air and sharing your views.
Thanks for taking the trouble to do it, too. I mean, it's not often that we get asked our opinions.
Okay. Everybody has a story. Everybody has an opinion.
Thanks very much for coming and listening. Yes.
And we're going to hear John Bartholomew with the American Association of Retired Persons here in just a moment as he shares some of his thoughts and concerns about seniors. AM 1260 KLYC, The Cruise. This is Town Hall. It's now 7 minutes before, we've almost talked for an hour. 7 minutes before 7 o'clock, it's 51 degrees, and thank you for being with us on AM 1260 KLYC.
Now we can swear.
Yeah.
The community center or the senior center? The center. The senior center. It's part of the Moscow Parks and Rec, I think.
No, not Moscow.
I mean, from Moscow, I'm sorry. We just came back from Moscow, Idaho, that is. No, it's McMinnville Senior Center, McMinnville Parks and Rec, I believe is the governing organization. Anyway, it's